5 distinct mechanisms, 8 main versions excluding the upcoming V9, a handful of spin-offs, and a name which means powerful dragon. What actually is a Weilong? Officially, a cube is a Weilong if Moyu names it as such, but going by this definition is not fun. Instead, I'm going to define a Weilong by the mechanism, because all these cubes all have something in common. So, a Weilong is a cube whose main feature is a somewhat triangular protrusion coming out of the second layer into the first layer territory. And for those of you who have been following my channel, you would have known that I have been using this definition to describe certain mechanism cut lines as Weilong cuts. The Weilong version 1 was a cube released around 2013, featuring a concave triangular protrusion and therefore a convex bulging cornerstock on the other side. Popping was a big thing in cubes back then, but the Weilong was part of a wave of cubes that was much harder to pop than ever before. And just a side fun fact, the Fangshi Shuangren was another cube in this wave. The Weilong was a fast cube for its time, it got really popular, and it was used to set the 6.54 average world record. And those stickerless cubes were not legalized until 2015. Manufacturers were making stickerless cubes anyway, and Moyu decided to make a version 2 which is compatible with this new trend. The mechanism is identical to the version 1, except that now the corners were split into 3 parts and the edges split into 2. And even though multiple versions of a cube may have the same mechanism, differences in piece construction and external features would mean that the sub-pieces would have different shapes. So even if that assembled back into the same piece with exactly the same shape, that would still require a different mold, and the new version pretty much has to be manufactured like a new product. And this trend would also be seen with later versions. The Weilong version 2 has some spin-offs. There's the mini Weilong, which was 55mm, and technically this would be the standard size in modern day, but at that time the standard size was 57, and 55 is considered mini, and this cube isn't really a replacement of the V2, more like an alternative side option. And there was also the Moyu Hualong, which was a variant of the Weilong V2, but with deeper cuts on the corners that improve reverse corner cutting and holes in the corners that lighten the cube. This technically deserves to be the V3 in my opinion, but Moyu cashed in on the Hua name of the Hua Chuang 5x5, even though this cube looks nothing like a Hua Chuang, whose unique feature is the two shell design. So due to the different name, this technically didn't add to the version count. And while the original Weilong was deemed fast for its time, it dropped to the slower end of the spectrum by the time 2016 rolled around. But then there was a new super fast cube. The third cube in the Weilong line was named the Waylong GTS, coming with a lot of design changes and making it the most different cube in the whole lineup. It has a lot of empty space, with the triangular bulges removed from the edges, and a much more complex torpedo structure than the original. It also features a large amount of anti-stick design. GTS also features a uniform internal and a cap on the outside. However, it still features the triangular flare on the centers, and the edges have a corresponding groove, which is evidence that the raw cut lines of the cube still satisfy the definition of Weilong. And just a side fact, the MF3 RS2, one of the best budget cubes of its time and also one of the pioneers of the RS line, features a very similar mechanism to the Waylong GTS1. The version 4 of the Waylong is the GTS2. It is much more faithful to the original Weilong design, and the split piece stickerless design also makes a return. The quantity of anti-stick design in this cube is somewhat cut down, and I do not know if the plastic has changed, but this is one of the softest and smoothest cube I have ever tried. This cube is even faster than earlier versions, but is still a significant upgrade in stability over the GTS1. The GTS2 is known to have set 2 single world records, first a 4.95 by Cho Seung-bom, and also the famous 3.47 by Du Yisheng. The fifth Weilong is probably one of the most influential 3x3s that shaped the modern market. The Waylong GTS3 features ridges on the exterior, a double torpedo, and it has amped up the anti-stick design to be even higher than that of the GTS1. However, the one game-changing feature that really defined this cube is its dual adjustment system. No longer do you have to swap the spring to alter the spring strength. Now you can just compress the spring, which is compressing the spring from the bottom is actually different from compressing the spring from the top using the screw. The screw also comes with an alteration of the cube's maximum stretch, whereas compressing from the bottom simply changes the spring strength without changing the cube's stretchability, allowing you to control stretchability and spring strength independently. This system continues to be implemented in subsequent Moyu flagship 3x3s, even made its way into budget cubes, and also many other brands outside Moyu also started to make their own versions of dual adjustment. The ridges of the GTS3 were not well received and the magnets were on the strong side. So for the Weilong version 6, Moyu tried to appeal more to common preference by weakening the magnets and removing the ridges of the GTS3, giving rise to the Waylong WRM. WR stands for without ridges, but it's also intentionally made to sound like world record. A Waylong GTS4 sort of exists, except not officially named the GTS4 since Moyu dropped the GTS name in favor of WRM. Therefore, the 7th version of Weilong was simply named the Weilong WRM 2020 after the year of release. However, due to multiple tubes existing with this particular mechanism, I would be using the term GTS4 to refer to the mechanism, and the proper names of the cube when referring to the specific products. So the top two major changes of the GTS4 over the GTS3 are firstly the anti-stick design, which is now a sunshine pattern on the corners, and torpedo structure where the double torpedo of the GTS3 is now changed into a fused wide torpedo stacked on top of a narrow torpedo, which helps to save up material and space and lighten up the cube. We also made a Bluetooth-enabled smart cube of the WRM 2020, known as the Weilong AI. The 8th Weilong, the WRM 2021, the uniform internal take on the GTS4 mechanism. It has stickerless split caps instead of a single cap like the GTS1. This cube pretty much aims to catch up with some of the technologies that other companies were implementing at that time, such as adjustable magnets, and that was when Moyu released the purple version, which was maglev. And for some time afterwards, purple internals were used to distinguish the maglev version of a puzzle from the regular spring version. Since I have set the definition of Weilong based on mechanism and not the actual product name, there are a handful of cubes that are not actually made by Moyu but satisfy the definition of Weilong. These include the Mo Tri Tianma X3, Da Yan Teng Yin V3, the X-Men Flare, and the Lai 2x2, which is pretty much based on the X-Men Flare. 4 out of 5 versions of the Moyi also feature the Weilong cuts. This leaves us with the V9. Just from the promotional material itself, I'm definitely excited to see what this cube would bring.